Welcome to Voices of Privacy. Today we're going to talk about a topic that many companies are touching upon, but that is not really in the eyes of the consumer a lot. And it's privacy by design. And our guest today is Nishant Bajaria. He is a cybersecurity executive. He's also author of the book Data Privacy, a Runbook for Engineers. And he is also a LinkedIn course author in security, privacy, and career management. Nishant, welcome.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Welcome. Very nice to meet you.
Likewise.
When I hear the term privacy by design, what does it actually refer to?
It basically refers to the simple idea that privacy has to be part of design. When you build something online, it needs to be factored in as a key component rather than adding on at the last second. You wouldn't buy a house without an inspection. You wouldn't buy a car without seatbelts. And as somebody who has been T-boned pretty badly once and still managed to stay alive through it, we all recognize the importance of having seatbelts, airbags, and all these safety features. So just as you wouldn't buy any of those products and features without the safety components, privacy should not be something that is like an optional capability. When you design something, when you're planning something at the whiteboard phase, think of privacy as a core component. And the argument we're making on top of that is privacy not just makes the product better, but it makes it more profitable for you. It's a way for a company to make money, be a differentiator, and be a market leader. Like Steve Jobs made the argument that Apple phones are better because of unique design. If you made that argument 25 years ago in the age of rotary phones, people would have laughed at you. So just as those analogies work, we're basically saying privacy should be part of the product's design.
That's fascinating. And I think I often speak about Steve Jobs and the Apple brand and how much they have done in terms of with the design and privacy. So that's one. But what other companies are involved in privacy by design?
But any company that interacts with you, your data, that customizes experiences based on their knowledge about you or people like you in a cohort has a pretty important role in privacy by design. One thing I'm looking to change is how do we get academia to train people? Like when you have students graduate with a conventional 4-year degree, they often don't have the experience to make financial decisions about their own money, right? That's something we haven't done well as an academic community. And I know that for a fact because when I graduated, I had no student debt, but I knew nothing about managing money. Similarly, how do you manage your data? How do you manage identity? How do you manage other people's data? How do you make decisions at an early phase that will then influence people's lives for years to come? So a lot of companies in the background are now waking up to this knowledge. They're training, hiring people like me to make sure that they not just stay compliant with regulations all over the world, but make decisions that will be intelligent and thoughtful and will not blow up in their faces once things ship out to millions of people.
I mean, from your experience, have you seen some sort of trend? Like what types of companies tend to be more involved with this?
Any company that customizes or makes recommendations or pitches products to you or recommends to you sports based on your identity, your location, your age, your fitness level, etc., is a tech company. And I think each of these companies, whether they know it or not, have a pretty big role in privacy, either because they benefit from your location data and your information, your biography, or they have to take measures because of the kind of data. So as an example, if you have data about children and you recommend to them a soccer field that's like maybe three blocks away from their house, that's a pretty significant privacy implication as well, right? So either because you benefit from privacy from customers' data, or because you have a responsibility from a legal or customer perspective to protect that data.
How would consumers, the normal consumer, know if privacy by design is embedded in their different products that they use? And is it something they should know, or is this a really deep level technicality? How does this, I guess, how do consumers know and how does it help them?
Applications of data sharing, the combination of data, the AI models that are now beginning to emerge, the ability to infer your location, your identity, your gender, your sexuality, your who you love, your preference, etc. You can provide all that information when you fill an online form, or you can just provide some information about you. And the ability of these companies to sort of munch this data together means that a lot of information is inferred about these customers without these customers ever entering it. And some of it may be accurate, some of it not so. The challenge is we are all extremely attention challenged. The question is, do these consumers know that there's a massive amount of data being moved back and forth behind the scenes? I'm fairly certain they do. But do they understand the implications of it and on them specifically? That's a challenge. So I feel like consumers have an instinct that this is happening. They do not understand the scope. And I think for that matter, a lot of companies outside of their core marketing teams, outside of their core IT teams, don't fully understand the privacy implications of data either.
We often survey our students are 18 to 22 and they have no concerns about privacy. But, have you seen any of that in the different age stages and just how companies approach that?
I don't know if the difference is based on age stages. I think what a lot of consumers have realized in the last 15, 20 years is they can get more if they give more. So if you give more data, you get more germane information. So I feel like a lot of consumers who make choices based on who want somebody else to make choices based on their own preferences don't necessarily worry about privacy too much, because it's a question of convenience. So it's more a question of how savvy you are online, whether you prefer to sort of make your own entertainment or you prefer to sort of have YouTube recommend stuff for you. So I think it comes down to that. The additional thing is that a lot of this happens based on a continuous profile that is built about you. So you spend some time on YouTube today, on the Washington Post website tomorrow, buy something on Amazon the day after, and then that cumulative consumer behavior across these platforms, across these different times of day, forms an online profile, which then becomes a recommendation engine, which then feeds a lot of recommendations for you on websites that you may not even know exist, right? So I kind of feel it's less about the generational aspect of it, and it's more about how much of your life you live online and how do you prefer to sort of make this exchange of services that are free or cheap in exchange for your data.
People definitely don't know what privacy by design is and may not truly understand all of the data flows that are happening. Will we need laws for companies to implement privacy by design? Or, is it just going to happen eventually where all companies are going to see the benefit and jump in?
When it comes to law, and when it comes to sort of enforcing companies' behaviors, I think enforcing that auto companies, for example, put seatbelts or, airbags, that's one level of complexity, because you can verify that the stuff's in there. Like you can't tell me that this car exists and the seatbelt isn't there, because, I can see it. But when it comes to data privacy, it's not usually one thing. Like there are always people and we've seen examples in the last decade of companies and people that have behaved very badly with customer data. They've used that data for inappropriate purposes, willfully and consciously. But a lot of privacy harms happen when data from this bucket, and this bucket combines together. So as an example, if you look at sort of my data in Silicon Valley from a taxi cab perspective, if you look at my zip code where I typically begin or end my rides, it's in the tech part of Silicon Valley. And then if you see me sort of go shopping in Sunnyvale, California, you combine those together, you might be able to infer that I'm probably in my 30s or 40s, I'm of South Asian descent, I work in tech, etc. So that's the privacy harm here. How do you combine data from all these sources and infer things about me that I never told you to begin with? In fact, if you look at my human fingerprint, it might take you 12 points of fingerprint data to identify me with 100% certainty. By contrast, if you were to get 5 locations where you know it's definitively me, it's the same person, you might be able to infer that it's me. So essentially, our digital footprint is much more identifiable than our actual fingerprint. But the challenge is these data points are so small, data changes so quickly, the amount of data gets created and deleted pretty quickly, data moves around transnational borders pretty quickly. So I'm not sure regulation is at a point of nuance that can capture the fine implications of data and privacy. So I kind of feel like some combination of regulation, technical tooling, global international standards is going to have to come together. And I think every company will tell you privacy is important, just as anti-bribery is important, just as anti-sexual harassment is important. Companies make a lot of commitments, but it's very hard to enforce those commitments because individual behavior is very hard to regulate, especially when it comes to vast amounts of data, which keep changing as time goes on.
I think those are great points. And when you mentioned online digital footprint and tracking, I've been talking about that and studying that for over a decade. So what in your, ideal world, what is the ultimate that you can kind of see in privacy by design for consumers? What would you think?
So I think consumers respond to 2 things, something that is visual and that's transparent and something that gives them choice. So transparency and choice is the way to go. I would basically say if consumers are given the option, we're toggling. You can have my data and here's what my experience looks like. So as an example, on the Amazon website, if you have my data, I'm a sucker for dogs. I love old dogs. I'll buy dog food once every 30 days. That makes total sense. If on the other hand, you're going to look at my medical information and then infer that I have XYZ disease, no can do. So give me the choice as to what data you collect about me and how it gets used and what it means in terms of my implications of personalization for me. So if it means I get recommendations that are less personalized on the healthcare front, fine, because I'm not going to trust an online company anyways. I'm going to trust my PCP. On the other hand, if you want to recommend better dog food that's cheaper, that's always going to keep my dogs happy, I'm happy with that personalization. So give me the choice. Data collection in one context, totally fine. Data collection in the medical context, not so fine. So I think citizen privacy is going to stem from awareness and choice and accountability. I think that's how you get involved. Most people out there don't have the time to read the fine points of privacy, security, or data. I remember my undergraduate commencement ceremony. My dad had visited from Mumbai to sort of see me graduate. And we went to the student union building after the ceremony. And there were all these desks outside with credit card companies handing out credit cards. All you had to do was fill a form, get a slice of pizza, and a lot of students were happy to sort of sign away their identity, all for a slice of pizza. And I remember us saying that it's not the future, it's the past happening again and again. It was a slice of pizza back then, and it's cookies today. So at the end of the day, we're all hungry, and we're hungry for free stuff. Companies are hungry for data, and that exchange just continues.
I want to thank you, and I know Franz, just bringing this into light has been very informative, because I don't think many consumers think this way.
Absolutely. Nishant, thank you so much for what you do and for talking with us today, because this is very insightful, and I think everybody's going to learn a little bit more today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate having me here. And I genuinely enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much.